you to go along with your endeavor, for which we are indebted to.
I would just remind me of a couple of things to mention. The Qur'an is also often called by the description of Majid, and Majid is not that far from what you might say is amazing. I mean, it is glorious, it is surprising, and the revelation too is spoken of in one ayah. It says to the Prophet, when it is revealed to you, it says Ajibta. It says, you marvel, you're amazed. They ridicule, but you're amazed. So the thought is there. I'd also stress what you may yet find too is that the linguistics is itself today a science. So the surprising aspects of the linguistics are still a scientific thing to point out to people, because the Arabic language today is a problem for people because it hasn't changed in all these centuries. It's borrowed a lot of words from someplace, but the Arabic is still preserved, due largely, I suppose, to the Qur'an. But that in itself is a problem for the linguist. No other language does that. It evolves in time. So that the linguistics was the second thing that I noticed in the Qur'an that surprised me so much. Because I read a translation, probably one of the worst translations there is, of the Qur'an. But then in having discussions with Muslims, they'd be talking about this or that, and they'd say, well, you know, the Qur'an says such and such. And I'd be so frustrated. I think, I read the translation. I don't remember that. So they'd show me in the Arabic, and you'd realize that the translation missed this point and that point. So I realized right away, in order to get the full meaning, you've at least got to examine the original. And so much is missing, very often in translations. And some really remarkable things. They are virtually, well, it'll take me too far off the track, but that's what led to a lot of interesting developments. You had questions there? It's asking for some elaboration on where this wall of Dhul Qarnayn is. Is it true that the Yajuj are the Russians? Not specifically, unless you loosely mean by Russians anybody who lives north of a certain point. Then it may well be this is Yajuj and Majuj. But Derbent is in the Soviet Union, but not in the Russian part of the Soviet Union. It's in the south part. And in fact, there are two cities called Derbent, but where you find the so-called Wall of Alexander is the description given in the Quran. Now, it's called Alexander's Wall because it used to be believed that Alexander the Great built it. That's now been disproved. Alexander didn't have anything to do with that wall. A lot of Muslims will tell you Dhul Qarnayn is Alexander the Great. It seems very doubtful, but maybe, but it seems doubtful. In any case, history will not now support that Alexander built Alexander's Wall, but it is the description according to the Quran, Derbent. Probably you could find in some encyclopedia under Alexander or Derbent more information about that. What is the best English translation of the Quran? Well, what I usually tell people to do is get as many as you can. Because if you don't know the Arabic, at least when you read, compare how the translations are of the same verse. And if each author translates the verse just about the same, then the chance is you're getting most of the meaning out of it. But if they have different translations for the same verse, then there must be a difficulty. Then you should inquire from someone who knows what is the problem. Why do they have trouble with this Arabic? So if you have a lot of translations to compare, you can make some progress this way. The nicest reading one in English now is probably by Arbery. It's called The Quran Interpreted by Arthur J. Arbery. There's one done by Thomas Irving, which is just now coming into print. He spent 25 years translating the Quran into English. He spent 1 year on one word. He wanted to be so careful. So I would recommend that. I've seen the manuscript of it. And there's various others around. But as I say, your best bet is to get as many as you can and compare. Did you learn Arabic before reading the Quraan and so on? Well, that's what I was just explaining. I read a terrible English translation